Will, it is great to have you here with us as we saw what happened late yesterday, overnight, and hearing these comments from the president this morning. I think we're really trying to figure out these tit for tat skirmishes between the United States and Iran. Is there something more serious going on? Was there never really a concrete peace accord? And, where is Iran in all of this?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. No, we do not have a concrete peace accord. This was an MOU framework agreement that was meant to set up 60 days of negotiations to work out the answers to those really tricky questions. The status of the Strait of Hormuz, what happens in Lebanon, and of course also Iran's nuclear file and its program. And so in many ways, there was a deliberate degree of ambiguity embedded into that agreement to buy time for both sides to try and stop the fighting, or at least to really lower the intensity of the fighting, while they could have more serious negotiations about those things. And I think what we're seeing right now and over the last 24 hours as it relates to the Strait of Hormuz is a fundamental difference in how the Iranian side interpreted the text of the MOU and how the US side interpreted it. For the Iranians, they are very keen to maintain some degree of control over the Strait of Hormuz going forward. They see this as potentially a long-term stream of income for them. But also they consider this to be their most powerful strategic tool that they have, or card they have to play. Whereas for the US, they felt that the MOU did not give Iran the control over the Strait of Hormuz. And so they had been helping ships try to transit the strait by sticking much closer to Oman. And I think that's where we saw then these tensions escalate and result in Iran firing on two ships just yesterday because these ships were trying to circumvent it. And for them, they saw this as a fundamental challenge to their longer term control over the strait going forward.
Well, you mentioned the phrase fundamental difference, fundamental challenge, all around the control of the Strait of Hormuz. How do we see the US and Iran get to level footing or an agreement? How does that fundamental difference play out given the events of the last 20 hours?
It's very difficult because it does seem like President Trump is trying to return to the status quo ante before he began his strikes on Iran on the 28th of February. He wants to see the Strait of Hormuz open to all maritime traffic. Of course, that is a huge boost for the global economy, or help send oil prices down. And those are things that he very much wants to see. But for the Iranians, that's a non-starter. They chose to play this card. They saw the power in it. They saw that they could wreak havoc on the global economy. And so they want to maintain their ability to use that tool again going forward if they're not getting what they want on the other terms of the agreement, as it relates to the investment that has been promised in Iran, as it relates to the unfreezing of their frozen assets. So I think, if anything, the grounds for some potential agreement would be some giving by the US side, where they might agree that Iran is able to set up a system whereby ships need to register with them to go through, so long as they continue to promise not to charge fees for doing that. That might allow both sides to save face. But I think it's going to be tricky to get there. And there's so much distrust between the two sides that what we're seeing now is each sort of jostling to try to secure the terms of the agreement as they believed they were signing up to it. And so that makes it very hard to see an easy off-ramp here.
I have to say, Will, with the Strait, it's either, okay, they're going to charge, they're not. To me, it seems pretty straightforward. And I'm just trying to figure out, is there something else? What about, nuclear weapons and the nuclear issues, which I thought this was all about?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, that was the whole motive for beginning this military campaign back in February, and that has really fallen off the priority list. And I think it's fallen off the priority list not just for the US as they sought to reopen the strait and allow traffic to move freely through it, but also for the Iranians because they realized that in many ways the strait was even more potent leverage for them than continuing to play this game where they get closer and closer to nuclear weapons capabilities without actually crossing that threshold. So yes, I think in the 60-day negotiations that we were expecting, they were meant to start talking about the nuclear file. But my understanding is this shows just how central the Strait of Hormuz is, and it also I think underscores the point that there were so many difficult issues for them to try to cover in these 60 days. It was never realistic that the two sides would come to a comprehensive deal on nuclear weapons or the nuclear program on the Strait of Hormuz and on what happens in Lebanon.
Well, war is tricky and peace is tricky. We get that. Does Iran want to extend the war throughout the region? I think I heard something on with the Balance of Power team on in the 1 o'clock hour. What's your take on this? I mean, are we going to be talking about still war between these two nations at midterms in 2027? Real quickly.
I don't think we're likely to be talking about an all-out war as to the levels of intensity that we saw beforehand as we get closer to the midterms. I think the economic costs for both sides would be too great if we got to that point. But I think the chances of a lower intensity conflict that continues to bubble away and sees outbreaks like we've seen over the past 24 hours is more likely. I think fundamentally it's not in either side's interest to resort to the full-scale conflict now because they don't think that they can reach their desired end state. In many ways, this war has shown that neither side can really win, and so they have to make compromises.
So hopefully at some point cooler heads prevail, but we will see.